But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen." Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, mother of James, and the other women from Galilee that had accompanied Jesus had the day before prepared the burial ointments to consecrate the body, to consecrate Jesus' body. But when they went to the tomb to do so, there was no body there. And the two angels, as they are referred to in the other three Gospels, asked them, "Why do you look for the living, and why do you look for the living among the dead?" Passover and Easter are always in close proximity on our calendar. And they share the same roots, both culturally and conceptually. Passover and Easter are both about freedom. They are about freedom. These are two stories that can be seen as a single tale, a single continuous, unbroken story. It is the story of release from bondage and finding freedom in that. In the Old Testament book of Genesis, we find the story of Passover. See, the Israelites had been enslaved in Egypt, and they wanted release. And as the story goes, God helped them. And to do so, God visited 10 plagues upon the Egyptian people. It was the last plague that was the worst of them all. As the story has it, God said, "The firstborn son in each and every house will be killed." But, he said to the Israelites, "If you paint the blood of a spring lamb on the doorposts of your home, the Spirit of the Lord will see it and pass over, leaving each and every occupant within unharmed." This story is an age-old story. It's lived in human consciousness for millennia. We know it more recently as the cavalry. It's a story of waiting for the cavalry to come, waiting for the cavalry to save us. Only in this particular case, God is the cavalry. It's a pattern which looks for something outside of us to save us, looking for something bigger than us, something other than us, to show up and save us. And it's a pattern that persists in the thinking of the world to this very day. Waiting to be saved, looking outside. The story of Easter is one of a man, a Jewish rabbi. A rabbi who knew greater spiritual truths than even his own teacher. And Jesus had many teachers. What Jesus did was this, as I understand it. He looked before the surface tensions of the world, of the physical world, of the material world, of the religious world of his day. He looked beneath the surface of those worlds and saw beneath them, permeating and emanating from each and every one of them, divine light. The light of love. The light that casts out darkness everywhere, always, effortlessly. It is the story, unlike Passover, which is really about release from external bondage, human bondage. The story of Easter is the story of release from the internal, self-imposed bondage of fear. You see, it's the same story. We just took it from the outside to the inside. Easter is the celebration of the ultimate release. The release of what might be our greatest fear, the fear of death. It is the release of that fear. As I shared last Sunday, we all arrive at the Easter story from different places. For some, Easter has no significant personal meaning. For others, it has symbolic truth. And for others still, it contains a living truth so profound that it has the power to transform one's entire worldview. That truth is, that which comes out of that transformation is the knowing there is no death. On Thursday of this week, I was at Unity Village. I went out for a very short trip. I was there to celebrate the life of Tom Lee, to enter into a celebration of life service. Now, I know you don't know Tom Lee, and you may have never heard that name before, but I want you to know just a little bit about him, and you'll understand why I'm speaking of this today. Tom Lee, his wife Therese, who has spoken here 2 years ago, and I first met in 2004 at Unity Institute. We were all members of that year's new ministerial class. Well, Tom, quite unexpectedly, made his transition from the earth plane to the next in February. As he slept, his heart stopped. It was immediate and peaceful, and no one anticipated it. A week earlier, he had passed an insurance physical with flying colors. There might be a moral there, I'm not sure. That's another story. Over the years, Tom and I grew to be very, very close. On that first day I met him, I went up to him and I said, I asked him, I said, "Your last name is Lee?" He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Then by chance, are you related to General Robert E. Lee?" He said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Well, then we're related, because so am I on my mother's side." And so we are related. I grew to respect over the years his wisdom, the unconditional embrace of his heart. And I was able to share with all of those present, 12 of my seminary classmates and hundreds of other people gathered at Unity Village to celebrate the life of this man. I do have a picture, small, but this is Tom. and that's his smile. And I'm going to pass it because I want to really share it with you. What I shared with everyone present that day was this: that of all the people on the planet, it was Tom's consciousness that reached out to me continually and most effectively in supporting me on my ministerial path these last 5 years. And I want you to know why. I mean, first of all, it was because of who Tom is. He is a giver. He always shows up, always, and asks, what can I do for you? And he reached out to me 5 years ago as I was going through a time, as we were going through a time of transition, because he knew immediately that he might be of service. He might have something to give. It's not only was he a man of wisdom and love, the reason he was so significant in my life was that he also understood the path that I walked from the inside out, because he was walking the same path as a fellow minister. In that way, he has been one of Renaissance Unity's greatest supporters from the very beginning. From the very beginning. As one after another of us spoke that day of our memories of and love for Tom, there was a common refrain that kept coming up, and that was Tom's ability to bilocate. Because he had the uncanny ability to apparently be everywhere all the time. He was always in the lunchroom. He was always in the chapel. He was always on grounds, which was the focus of his work at Unity Village. He oversaw all the construction at Unity Village, because before becoming a minister, he was an engineering architect. And so at Unity Village, they saw a perfect confluence: an ordained minister, an engineering architect, and much restoration, construction work to be done. He was always in the administration building. He was always praying with ministerial students who needed support. He was always giving. Everywhere present. Earlier that day, that morning, after I got up, I went for a morning run. And at the end of the run, I stopped beneath a pine tree. And as I stood there, in an instant I felt Tom's presence all around me. I saw his smiling face before me. And for some reason I was moved with my hands to reach out and to hug the trunk of that tree. And as I did, I was hugged by Tom. There is no death